So how in the world does a presidential pardon for some crypto billionaire connect to 42 million Americans potentially going hungry? Well, the line between those two things is a lot shorter and straighter than you'd think. And believe it or not, it all kicks off with one really strange interview.
Yeah, you heard that right. I don't know who he is. That was President Trump on 60 Minutes, talking about a guy he just pardoned. And that one little sentence, it sets off this whole chain reaction that makes you ask some really big questions. You know, like who's actually steering the ship here, and who are they doing it for?
Okay, so first things first. Let's really dig into that statement and this pardon that's at the center of everything.
So this guy, the president, supposedly doesn't know. His name is Changbang Zhao, or CZ for short. And look, this isn't some small-time player. We're talking about the former CEO of Binance. That's the largest crypto exchange in the entire world. And he pleaded guilty to some really, really serious stuff, like money laundering and even helping to finance terrorist organizations. Not exactly a nobody.
And yet what happens? Just a few weeks after he's sentenced, boom, a full presidential pardon. This is the very same guy the government itself said caused significant harm to U.S. national security. It just doesn't add up. So the big question is, why? Why him?
Well, when he was asked for a reason, the president's answer was kind of all over the place. You know, he threw out some political attacks, called it a Biden witch hunt, and then he made this big case for why the U.S. needs to be a leader in crypto. But then he said something really interesting. He brought up his own sons and how involved they are in that same industry.
And that little comment about his sons? Well, that's our cue. Let's follow the money trail here, because it leads to what looks a whole lot like a $2 billion conflict of interest.
Okay, get ready for this, because this is where it gets wild. Binance, right, the company founded by the guy who just got pardoned, helped fund a $2 billion deal. And that deal was connected directly to the Trump family's own crypto business. I mean, you can't get a more massive financial link than that. So naturally, people started asking, hey, doesn't this look like a pay-for-play situation? And when the president was asked about it, what did he say? Once again, he said he didn't know. He kind of just waved it away, said his sons were handling it, and that he was too busy with other things. It's a convenient answer for sure, but it also opens up a much bigger question.
Right. I mean, this is what led journalist Heather Cox Richardson to ask what is really the most important question of all. If the president doesn't know what's happening, who is?
And here's the thing. This whole "I don't know" defense, it's not just coming from the White House. It seems to be the go-to move in Washington these days, right up to the highest levels of Congress.
I mean, check this out. When House Speaker Mike Johnson was asked about the president's interview, his response was basically identical. I didn't see it, don't know anything about it, you gotta ask him. You starting to see a pattern here?
And this is a classic political move, right? If you just say you're out of the loop, you don't have to give your opinion, you don't have to take a side, and most importantly, you can't be held accountable. But playing dumb like this has some very, very real consequences.
And this is where it all comes together. That leadership vacuum, that willful ignorance has led us straight into a government shutdown. We're on day 34 now, folks. So while leaders are busy not knowing things, the actual government is at a standstill. And who pays the price for that? Millions of regular Americans. So let's talk about that. What does this political gridlock actually look like for people on the ground? Because this isn't some abstract game happening in D.C. This is a real crisis with a huge human toll. Let's start with something basic: food. The funding for SNAP benefits, you know, the program that helps feed 42 million Americans, it ran out on October 31st. Just gone. That's 42 million people, including kids and seniors, suddenly left wondering how they're going to afford groceries.
Now, a court did step in and order the administration to use emergency reserves, but the response? They're only funding about half of the benefits. And to make matters worse, even those partial payments are being delayed for weeks, maybe even months. So families are just stuck in this terrible limbo.
And with winter coming on, it gets even worse. There's another program, LEHEAP, that helps 6 million households pay their heating bills. That's unfunded too. And the real kicker? The administration's own budget plan actually wants to get rid of that program for good.
So think about that contrast for a second. While all these essential programs for everyday people are completely frozen, other parts of the government are moving full steam ahead with some really aggressive and controversial stuff, all without any oversight from Congress because, well, it's shut down.
For example, back in that same 60 Minutes interview, the president defended these intense ICE raids and blamed liberal judges for holding them back.
But if you look at the facts, it's a whole different story. Over 100 federal judges have ruled against these policies. And these aren't just liberal judges, they were appointed by presidents from Reagan all the way up to Trump himself. So this isn't really a political fight, it's a legal one.
And at the exact same time, the administration is conducting military strikes in Venezuela and completely blowing past the deadline set by the War Powers Act for getting congressional approval. Their reason? They say it's okay because U.S. troops aren't at risk. But this move to bypass Congress has a real human cost. We're talking 65 deaths so far.
So that's where we are. You've got this pardoned crypto billionaire on one hand, and on the other, 42 million Americans struggling to put food on the table. It really brings us back to that one final essential question. When the people in charge just claim they don't know what's going on and their power is completely unchecked, who's the one that really ends up paying the price?